Good Yom Tov. Oh, holiday is today. Yutes Kislev, the 19th day of Kislev. The day that the Alter Rebbe, our teacher of Tanya, released from prison in 1799. 2 years before that, the Tanya was published. Tanya was making great inroads amongst the Jewish people. And there were elements of the religious world that were very upset of the inroads that were being made. They saw that, hey, what are you changing things? Hasidim dance spontaneously on the street. Hey, you might do somersaults sometimes out of great joy. That's not the way to act. Not of a scholar. Now, how much time are they really spending in scholarship of the Talmud? Learning Kabbalah, mysticism, Hasidic teachings. What is this? It's all new. So, threatened about what would be, they went to the authorities, ultimately to the Tsar of Russia came to tell him that he's doing something that's treasonable. Several things. In particular, that he was sending money to the enemy of Russia. Who was the Tsar's enemy? The Turks. Turkey. The Ottoman Empire. Not Turkey, right? The Ottoman Empire. And indeed, he was sending to what the Ottoman Empire had control over at the time, which was the Holy Land of Israel. And he was sending not to the Ottoman Empire, of course, but to his mentor, Mendel Haradoker, and to Chassidim there and Jews there that were struggling with a harsh environment, difficult times. And he was sending them charity to help them. They used this against him, amongst other things, saying that even the teachings of Hasidism, Tanya, is a rebellion against the Tsar of Russia. And he was imprisoned. He was actually asked 33 different questions about teachings and different things, of which he was compelled to respond. And that was painful because crude individuals are not looking for God, not looking for truth, not looking for goodness. But he responded. And they quickly recognized his righteousness. The Tsar of Russia actually came incognito even into the cell because he had heard about his greatness. Literally came incognito. And the Alter Rebbe stood up and said, "Your Highness."
Oh, he recognized it.
He never saw him before. He didn't have on his smartphone a picture of him. And he didn't even read the newspaper to have a picture of him. But he asked him, "How do you know?" Because he came incognito. He came as a officer, of the prison. So he said, "Well, because the kingship down here is a reflection of kingship up there." In other words, he saw reflected in him royalty that is of a heavenly nature. Because you can't have royalty if if God doesn't give you that royalty. So he saw it in heaven, and he saw it was bestowed upon him down here, and therefore he stood up to and gave and greeted him with the appropriate manner. Anyway, many more stories, many more things we can express. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zurich and Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We begin a new cycle, Yutes Kislev, on this day, the release of the Alter Rebbe from prison. So first, I want to wish everybody a good Yom Tov. May you be inscribed and sealed as this day is Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah for a good year. What is it the Rosh Hashanah of? Of the study of Hasidus and in the ways and the path of Hasidism. Not only should we study, but we should implement the studies and make it a part and parcel of how we behave. So we begin with the title page. Title page, Sefer Likutei Amarim. It's a Sefer, a book called The Compilation of Teachings. The Alter Rebbe in his humility only looks at this book as he's compiling from previous teachers. That's how he looks at it. Part 1, Chelik Rishon, Nikra B'Shem, that's called in the name Sefer Shel Beinanim, the book of the intermediate. This is not the book of the righteous, but the Beinani, the intermediate, not wicked, but in between the wicked and the righteous. Ultimately, as we will learn in chapter 12, that the Beinani is someone who has complete mastery over every action, every word they say, and every willful, cogitated, meditated thought. Not the thought as it comes in, but but every willful thought. They have complete mastery. And you know who we are? BITs, Beinani in training. That's who we are. Okay. Continuing in the title page, Melukat Mipi Svarim, it is a compilation from sacred books. The sacred books are primarily Maimonides, Rambam, the Maharal, Rabbi Yehuda from Prague. Well, there's a statue of him there. He is the maker of the golem and great holy person that lived in the 1600s, if I recall correctly. And from the Shalom, Shnei Luchas Habris, Rabbi Horowitz, who also I think maybe he was in the 1700s, I recall that. In any case, these are the sacred books in particular. I mean, it's from many more, of course, including the Talmud of Zohar and so on. That's basically it. And continues to maybe Seifrim Kedushay Elyon Nishmas Maiden, and from the teachers of a heavenly saintliness, whose souls are in Eden, in the Garden of Eden. That's where their souls are. Who's he speaking about? Specifically, the Baal Shem Tov, who's the founder of the Hasidic movement, who he referred to him as Zaydid, as grandfather, even though he only met him once when he was 3 years old. That is his haircut. That's a different story. But he's his spiritual grandfather. And the Magid of Mezrich, the Mezrich Magid, the Dov Ber, who was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, and the Rebbe of the Alter Rebbe, his teacher. So those are the teachers, right? Continuing, Yusud, it is based on these 53 chapters that we're going to speak in the first book. Is based on a pasuk, on a verse in the Torah, in Devarim and Deuteronomy, in Parshas Vayelech. all the way near the end of the entire Torah. There's a unique verse. I mean, every verse in Torah is unique. In the 5 books of Moses, right? And what is that verse? For it is close. Elecha to you. It's close to you. What's close to you? Hadavar. This thing is very close. What's this thing? Your relationship with God, your divine service, your Torah and mitzvahs is very close to you. So we're going to learn very close, very near. So we're going to learn how it's near. Will be chapters 9 through 17. How it's near and how it's very near. That's chapters 18 through 25. And we'll learn how it's really close, really, really close. And what are we learning? How is it close? Where? In what way is it close? Beficha, in your mouth, meaning in your speech and communication. Bilvovcha, in your heart, which also means thoughts. It's got a double meaning over here. It means your thoughts. Because what do you think about? That which is on your heart. If it's not in your heart, you won't think about something. If it weighs heavily on your heart for good or for or for a challenge, whatever it is, if it's very right, it's there strongly, then that's what you're going to think about. If it's not in your heart, then you ain't thinking about it. Simple, right? But it also means thought, and let's say it means action. Thought, speech, and action, which are the garments of self-expression. Right? A garment you can put on and take off. Your actions, your speech, and your meditated thought, you can take on and off at will. You can choose what kind of actions you want to take, what kind of words you want to express, what kind of thoughts you want to think. Might be by nature very negative, but you could choose your thoughts and make them positive, for example. So we're going to learn how you can have mastery over this completely. Complete mastery. The Vayar to explain very clearly, very, very clearly, the Alter Rebbe explains how it in fact is very exceedingly close and near to us, this divine service of having mastery over our thought, speech, and action. Wow. In a lengthy and a short way. Bezos Hashem. It's with the help of God. Which means lengthy and short. Hey, if you can go the short way, why go the lengthy way? Because sometimes the short way doesn't get you there. Might be a short path, but then, can't quite get there. Talmud tells us of Rabbi Shua ben Hanania. He said, there was once a child that got the better of me. He was going to Jerusalem. He's going to Jerusalem, and he asked a child, he's going through, not on the main road, I guess, the way I understand. And he asked him, how do you get to Jerusalem? So he says, you want the long way or the short way? Well, so he said, of course, the short way. Why should I take the long way if I can take the short way? Told him. He comes, and it was a short way to get to Jerusalem. But there was a gate or something, a barrier that didn't let him get through. So he made his way back. He says, he told me a short way, but I couldn't get through the barrier. He says, oh, okay, here's the long way. So why did you tell me? Well, that's the short way that's long, but then there's a long way that's short. So he gave him the long way. It was a longer route, but there's no barrier and he was able to get through. This is a metaphor to understand two paths that we're going to be speaking about. Chapters 9 through 17 is the long way. In a sense, it's short because you get there. And then there's chapters 18 through 25. It's the short way, but it's not sufficient. You don't quite get there. What does that mean? Just briefly, there's a way that you can go through the mind. The mind is full of awareness and knowledge about God and your relationship with God, God as creator, God in the world, God beyond the world. And your mind is so filled that it feeds the heart and brings you to action, to thought, speech, and action. It's a lengthy process. And yet it's short in the sense you own it. And therefore it's short because once you own something, it's always at hand. The short process is, hey, you already have a hidden love for God in your very heart and your very soul. And it's short because it's already a reality within you. You don't have to create it like knowing God. That's a very great task. And you can get there. Except it's long because in the end you don't own it. It's not yours. It's something given to you. Something that's given to you, work hard for it. That's different. So can you imagine one verse for 53 chapters? With God's aid, we're going to get there. Now that it continues, today's Tanya continues with approbations from the first approbation is from Zusha from Anipol. Mishulam Zusha from Anipol, who was a contemporary, was a bit older than the Alter Rebbe. He was older than the Alter Rebbe, yeah. And he writes that, of this rabbi, a guy, a godly man, saintly and pure, God given him a wonderful kindness that he can give us such a teachings to show God's people the holy ways. The Alter Rebbe's intention was not to publish these writings, as was his custom, but because the pamphlets that he had were spread amongst the people, and there were many errors in the copies, and some people wanted to make an error in the copies in order to be able to point a finger to him. Oh, these teachings are inappropriate. That brought him that he had to print it as a book. He had to print it as a book. And the printing was two partners, Shalom Shachna and Reb Mordechai. They printed this book in Slavitia. I congratulate them for the good deed. And no one shall print this for 5 years without permission from them. That way, because, remember that there were those who were instigators, those who were against the teachings of the Alter Rebbe. And 2 years later, he was imprisoned because they were concerned about these teachings. So no one should print it for 5 years. So that way, the appropriate copies would become pervasive throughout the Jewish world, and then no one will be able to print it with erroneously. He concludes, Sakatla Mishulam Zusha Anipol Ram Reb Zusha. Second approbation is from Yehuda Leba Kayin, who says a similar thing. He adds here that that he drew the waters from the living well springs of our master, the Maggid. There are many students that were by the Mezritcher Maggid, that and many of them became their great Hasidic masters, Rebbes. And as he says that, he got the best of the wellspring. He got the best waters, the water of life, as his book is life itself. So he got the best part. And then finally, there is an approbation from his sons, from his son Dov Ber, who becomes the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, right, the Middler Rebbe, Chaim Avram, and from his son Moshe. And they say a similar thing about, they add a few things here about the things were added. Initially, there was only the first part, second part, and third part of Tanya. Then it was added the fourth part, which are the letters of the Alter Rebbe, the 32 letters that we have printed in, and then we have the Kunshei Zachar, that was added later from his teachings, which we just, finished yesterday. And again, saying no printing of this book for 5 years without permission from the publishers. Again, for the same reason, make sure that these teachings will become disseminated appropriately with the proper text. So, the Rebbe Rashab said, Yod Tis is Rosh Hashanah for the teachings of Chassidus and its path. New year. New year means a new beginning, new opportunity. Let's take this new opportunity and start off, as they say, on the right foot, with learning Tanya. And let us try to get some others involved in the learning of Tanya, because its teachings and the path that it gives us and how to lead our lives is incomparable to any other teachings. And that's why it's a daily study, day in, day out. It says the previous Rebbe would say, a good yontiv, a good holiday, Lashana Tova, or a good year, the limit of Chassidus and the learning of the Chassidic teachings, the Darkei Chassidus, and in the path. And it should not just be an intellectual engagement, but through it, we take the path, we bring it into our thought, speech, and action, and we live it. That's the path. We should be written and sealed. All right, folks. Yes, whoever is making a resolve to continue for learning this new year, this new cycle together, send me your name. If you're Jewish, your Jewish name and your mother's Jewish name. If you're not Jewish, then your name and your father's name. I'm writing into the Rebbe. You're given your names as, give the Rebbe Nachas, let him know. And for blessings, learning together like this is untold blessings. We do it because that's what a chassid does. Learn Tanya every day. You don't see questions. All right, Rabbi, coming up. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you, Chabad Zurich in Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya again and again and again. It remains alive. Even though I've taught this, I think this might be for public to teaching this daily. I don't know if it's my 19th or 20th year going into, I have to figure out. But it doesn't get stale. It gets better and better. When we get better, it gets better. Thank you for joining. And then we're going to go down this together and to make it real and change from within so that